Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this meeting of licensing subgroup here, subgroup B. The first item on the agenda is to nominate and elect a chair for the purposes of this meeting. I understand that Councillor Higgins has been proposed. Is that correct?
It is, and I'd like to second.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. I think we'll start for the benefit of everyone in the room and online and in the public gallery that we introduce ourselves. So if I could start to my right.
I'm Ruth Reed. I represent as a borough council.
I'm Councillor Michael Higgins and I represent Ewhurst and Ellens Green.
Hello everybody, I'm Councillor George Hess and I represent Farnham Castle Ward for Waverley Borough Council. Thanks.
Julian Carson-Jones, solicitor.
Good afternoon. My name's Bill Don from Silver Fox Licensing Consultants, and I appear on behalf of Brightwell 25 Limited, the applicant.
Good afternoon. This is Murat Samut, Brightwells is director of the Brightwells Limited.
Paul Hughes, licensing manager.
Brian Rimmer, a resident in Watson House.
Barbara King, owner of properties in Brightwell.
Alicia Moqtadar, a resident at Watson House.
Thank you very much, everyone. We are here today to consider an application for a new premises licence, Den 97 Restaurant and Bar, 5 Nightingale Walk, Farnham, GU9 7RW. The application has been made by Brightwells 25 Limited in respect of a restaurant and bar. The hearing is to enable the committee to consider the submissions and reach a judgment under rules and guidance imposed by the Licensing Act 2003 and having regard to the Council's statement of licensing policy, which as far as possible is acceptable to all parties within the rules and guidelines imposed by the Licensing Act 2003. Now those in front of me will be given an opportunity to speak, but if I could begin with Officer Paul Hughes to introduce the application, I'll be grateful.
Thank you, Chairman. You have in front of you an application for a new premises licence for Den 97 Restaurant and Bar, 5 Nightingale Walk, Farnham, in respect of, as I said, a restaurant and bar from Brightwells 25 Limited. In brief, the applicant seeks to licence the premises for late night refreshment. For the uninitiated, late night refreshment only requires licensing between the hours of 11 PM at night and 5 AM in the morning, and that's for the sale of hot food and drink. So they've requested it for 11 o'clock at night till 11:30, Thursday to Saturday. Sale of alcohol for consumption on and off the premises, Sunday to Wednesday, 10 till 10:30 at night, and Thursday to Saturday, 10 till 11:30 at night. Opening hours Sunday to Wednesday, 9 till 11 PM, and Thursday to Saturday, 9 till midnight. No representations have been received from any of the responsible authorities.
Reading the pages that we have here.
Yeah, what's
The agenda.
this is.
Okay.
The application has, however, received 18 valid representations from other persons, 10 of which are objecting to the application and 8 are in support. Officers request you consider the application.
If I could just outline that the council owns the freehold of Brightwells Yard, which has been developed by the council in partnership with Crest Nicholson in terms of interest. Yes, of course, apologies. The council owns the freehold of Brightwells Yard, which has been developed by the council in partnership with Crest Nicholson It's just to make sure that's made known. But the council will be acting here in the licensing committee to determine the matter.
Thank you very much. Could I just double check that you've received you've had sight of the papers, the report? Yep. Is that okay? I mean, if you'd like this copy, you're welcome to, yeah. And can I just confirm the applicants had a copy of the report as well?
Yes, Chair, we have it in front of us. Thank you.
Okay, great. Then in the meantime, whilst they're looking for a report, would you mind introducing the application?
Chair, I have two questions, if I may, for the licensing officer before we commence. The first one is, have all members and objectors seen the skeleton argument submitted?
I haven't had a sight of this, so I think it would be worthwhile if it's an agreement that we probably have a short adjournment so we can read through it.
I'll be most grateful. Thank you.
And
If
then
it
that
will
gives you a
assist you.
chance to read through as well. So we'll adjourn for 5 minutes and we'll return at 4:20.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone, for allowing us to adjourn just to consider that statement. Apologies, you were going to ask a second question of Officer Hughes.
That's no longer necessary, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Then please go ahead, Mr. Don, in present the application.
Chair, this is my application for the grant of a premises licence for Brightwell 25 Limited at the address with the details as outlined by your licensing officer. The application is relatively straightforward. It is for a premises located in Brightwell's Yard, and it is for the grant of an on licence, but also for the off sales as well. The operation style is a restaurant and bar in the more modern style of an experiential bar. So there's food available with booths and tables, mainly for families, to enjoy something extra over and above a simple, straightforward restaurant. So while they're dining, they can take part in shuffleboards, electronic darts, computer-generated golf tournaments and so on. It's all very much state of the art, and it's certainly the way that the hospitality industry is moving. The application has attracted numerous residents' objections. They're in your bundle in detail, and I'll come on to those in a moment. But it is important to note that there have been no representations received from officers from the responsible authorities. This is an important consideration because if I refer you to section 182 of the National Guidance of the Licensing Act, 9.12, as in the skeleton argument, you must give weight to responsible authorities as experts. And it is significant that none of the responsible authorities have made any representations. Indeed, whilst tacit approval doesn't necessarily follow, it is significant that they didn't put a representation in, even to suggest additional conditions that may be added to the operational schedule. So they're satisfied that the conditions within the application would help promote the 4 licensing objectives. And that includes no objections from the police and no objections to environmental protection. And I identify those separately because if I turn to the residents' objections, and they do live, if I may just take time to just describe the area. The area has been developed by Surrey Council. It advertises on the website that it's a undeveloped area, that it's there to provide a vibrant retail and leisure destination facility. Effectively, as beautiful it is, and it is a very lovely area, it is effectively building a new town centre. And the apartments above, luxurious as they are above commercial properties. And the height within the ground floor of the commercial property is very high before you reach the residence apartments on the 1st and 2nd floors. Now, you will have read the letters, emails from the objectors, and their main concerns would be one of crime and disorder, antisocial behaviour, and the other one of public nuisance, where there might be noise either from the premises or from people leaving the premises. I would like to suggest to the committee that they review the conditions, and I hope that you feel satisfied that as an operator, we have contained within the conditions ways that we're going to manage the business to stop any noise nuisance and also to manage the dispersal of customers, patrons coming into the venue throughout the day. There is indeed an outside area that is part of the demise, and it is intended to provide service and consumption of alcohol products as well as food on the outside of the premises. Now, In terms of more detail of how the property is being developed, there is soundproofing that's going into the ceiling, into the side walls, and also a special treatment on the flooring that will prevent echoing. In terms of the outside furniture, they will have rubber grommets on the feet, so the feet of the chairs, so if they're moved around, that won't cause a noise either. My client is very experienced. In fact, I've been representing Mr. Summit here for 23 years in a number of different operations, and we have a sister operation already up and running in Wokingham called Den 42. So we're experienced operators in this particular market. It's been very successful, it's very family orientated, and the customers are delightful, and the fuel consumption is high. But it's fun, and it is something different within the commercial market. Now, I accept, as a licensing subcommittee, commercial considerations are not under your remit. It's about the promotion of the 4 licensing objectives. But we feel confident that the applicant has sufficient experience and indeed a good example within the premises in Wokingham that they can run and manage the premises effectively without undermining the 4 licensing objectives. The objectors are all residents, and of course they will be concerned, and that's right. And I do have some empathy with the objectors because they fear what might happen. Well, of course, it might not. There are other businesses in the area that are licensed, and they're not causing any problems either. So there's little evidence to say that by granting the license as applied for, both in terms of timings and conditions, that it will undermine the 4 licensing objectives. My client is keen to work with local residents. Within the conditions, we've offered a hotline, and that would be a dedicated phone line for complaints only. So if there are issues relating to a noise nuisance, then there's a hotline that they can reach the duty manager, not the owner, the duty manager on duty, and they can resolve things. There is also a condition in the licence, which of course is legally enforceable, that thou shalt not cause a nuisance with the music, nor vibration. Now, within the application, we've not asked for recorded music. It is accepted, of course, and your legal advisor will point this out, that if we did want to do recorded music, and recorded music isn't, in terms of the general perception, background music, which is recorded, isn't licensable. It's only a licensable activity if it becomes more foreground than background and a reason for entertainment. Well, there's no intention to do that, even if we would be permitted under the Live Music Act up until 11. It is background music. The main focus is the food and the entertainment, the physical engagement of entertainment that's involved. It is always the intention of the landlords to promote the vicinity as an entertainment and leisure place with retail shops and so on. I think there's 27 different shops that are partly let, and there's more to come. So it is a vibrant area. In fact, there's even plans on their website to say they're going to have special events, subject to licensing, of course, in the main area. This is meant to be a vibrant hub. It's not a sleepy residential area. It is a vibrant, it has vibrancy. But that said, of course, we do understand the concerns of the local residents, and we will make sure that we work with them to make sure there's no issues in respect to public nuisance or antisocial behaviour in the area. Chair, that is my submission, unless you have any questions that may assist you further.
Thank you very much. We'll come on to questions shortly. I'm sure be a few, but if I give an opportunity to those in attendance to respond to the application, if we start with you, sir, and move across, I'd be grateful. Oh, sorry. If you'd like to speak in response to the application.
My main objection is, what you said, it's worry of what might be. But you've got to, we know of the building and the area as it is. Nightingale Walk, for example, it reverberates. Anybody going down there, it's very noisy. If you get people coming out of there, putting a sign up saying it's a residential area will make no difference whatsoever. You know, the problem is that, particularly with young men, as they drink more, they get deafer and they have to shout at one another. And that's one of my concerns for the outside, on the patio area. Also from the patio area, you've mentioned rubber things on the bottom of chairs, but people do tend to move things about. It would be better with something like you've seen it inside, you put it soundproofing on the ceiling and something on the floor. Something perhaps on the floor in the patio area might alleviate some of that. On the outsails, what I would like to know what you said the hours that you're open for outsails. I presume you'll be selling things for up to the final selling time. That would encourage people to buy alcohol, take it out with them, and then come to the. Are you taking the chairs in at night, the tables in at night, and come around the front and start drinking at night when the place is shut, or even into the area, the grass area where children and mothers go. The other thing was noise is deliveries. Excuse me a minute. Deliveries can be very noisy.
I'm so sorry, I didn't hear that last comment.
Deliveries can be very noisy. With little experience with the other two businesses, where they bring the glasses round into the little bins and just throw all the glass in there and makes one hell of a noise. We've also had with that, again, this will come probably not directly, but the council have been known to pick up the bins at 5 in the morning, which is ridiculous. I believe it has sort of stopped for a while, but these are the sort of things, to me, that we need to be looking at. Thank you.
Grateful. Thank you very much. If you'd like to now speak.
He's still on, right? There we go. Thank you for the summaries. You did allude to the fact that we're all presuming and panicking about what might happen. Addressing Waverley, we know what happens. People flagrantly, not necessarily the businesses themselves, but the refuse collections that are managed by Waverley are flagrantly out of hours. We've got people taking photographs at 4 o'clock in the morning when the only rubbish being collected really is the cinema and such like. So the volume of glass being discussed is nothing like the volume that potentially comes from bottles and so forth from this kind of an establishment. There have been photographs taken, there have been messages sent, complaints issued, and still Biffert turns up at ungodly hours, again, on a smaller scale that would come from a practice like that. To come back to the other general noise, I've seen lots of interior soundproofing being applied, which is wonderful. And that will help an immediate surrounding, in the building. However, the noise outside is atrocious. To come to what Brian said about people becoming deaf the later the evening goes and the more they've drunk. I sat at a different venue. It's the castle, it's in the center of the town, and it has a small terrace. And I was with 4 women on one small table. I couldn't speak properly by the end of the evening because in order for them to be able to hear me, the group of 12 young people sitting on the table beside us were making so much noise that we couldn't be heard one to the other without shouting. You come to the summertime, these are not air-conditioned buildings, so people are going to have to try to sleep with their windows open. And now we're talking about a family establishment being allowed to operate and serve until well beyond any time most kids would be trying to go to sleep, when plenty of adults will be trying to go to sleep with their windows open. And it's the outside noise that generally is wildly difficult to control. And there are comments about how much there will be, sorry, I can't put my hand on it. There was a comment in the document about ensuring that patrons are asked to leave and made to leave in a quiet fashion. I see nothing which explains how you will accomplish that, because when those patrons leave, their choices of direction are 3-way. If they go left, don't worry about whatever, they're walking past an old age care home. If they walk straight up through the center, they're bouncing between tall buildings, bouncing all the sound, all of which are residential. By the way, the ratio of residential to commercial is nothing like your installation that's in Woking. There are a lot more residential properties here that are going to feel this noise, and that will reverberate all the way up the green. And the patrons, once they leave your premises, especially if they've been able to take alcohol and take it with them and go or whatever, they're now outside off your premises. And I fail to see how you can in any way control the amount of racket that they will or won't make. I've witnessed people coming even out of the cinema where really there's not much alcohol being taken, and they just stand outside. Same with the restaurants, they stand outside and they chatter long beyond the closing hours. And you're already pushing the closing hours long beyond when a family would ordinarily be having a meal or a dinner or a nice entertainment. And we see on here the licensing goes up to, at one point 11:30, but then you don't close until midnight. And then we'll have people outside for even beyond that. It's hard to see how that can be managed when those licenses go that far on under the guise of being a family entertainment setup. And then, by the way, if you go, so I described left, you're going past old people's home, straight ahead, you're right between all these tall buildings bouncing all the sound. And if you go right, you are in the extremely narrow alley that we all know about, because you've obviously been there. Some of you may not have done, but it's possibly 3 meters wide, very tall, reverberates everything. We've had antisocial behavior, which included some youths throwing shovels from a roof. So we're not being entirely speculative about just how questionable some behavior can be. Somebody in broad daylight dropped a shovel off a roof, narrowly missing a person, a pedestrian outside one of the restaurants. So we know it's a reality. We're not just inventing things. And partly, I'm sorry to say, a lot of our reality is authorities. I'd love to know who those responsible people, bodies, oh yes, the responsible parties who didn't bother making any kind of representation at all, include the police, who've not really responded to lots of incidents, but started getting there when people nearly died because the shovel nearly landed on their head, when other people had rocks thrown from our now partly damaged solar panels because teenagers went up through the car park that is ostensibly to be managed by Waverley, and they went up onto the roof and they threw rocks at people's terraces. So they threw rocks from across a 3-meter gap, throwing them onto the balconies of people who live in Watson House. So they're here now under assault again. So along with measures that may be taken internally by the proprietors, which they're clearly earnestly trying to do in various places, the outdoor noise is an enormous threat. The outdoor terrace, you've already spoken about wanting furniture and tables on the outside, but it wasn't clear that the application was for exterior entertainment at some point. So we're not quite sure how many tables you're talking about putting out anyway. But I come back to that group of 12 youths, young people, I don't mean kids, I'd probably put them somewhere in their 20s, who, as far away as that gentleman there, meant that to talk to that person, I had to bellow. And that's what we face when they're outside, and you're talking about letting them be outside until at the very least midnight. You will have served them alcohol until 11:30, but they're all going to be outside in front of old age pensioners' homes in a residential area of a far greater percentage than your existing working installation. And it has not been our experience that we have been supported in any way by backup from Waverley, from the Surrey police. The police didn't start to respond, but we know Surrey police are operating more of a sting operation. They're focusing on much higher risk, they're rightly focusing on drug issues and so on. So us, with no police presence whatsoever, all we have is, they're not even special constables, it's the ones in between, PCSOs. We don't have any police presence. We have nothing to back up a business who's trying to encourage, entertainment and noise and amusement going on quite late. We have no cover. And it's been our experience so far that that does make a difference. We have not had, it's taken to the point of someone nearly being killed with a shovel, ignoring people complaining about, I've got a rock, by the way, the size of my fist. Somebody showed it to me from his, thrown onto their balcony. And so we're not speaking in wild speculation. We're giving you an account of our experience so far, and our reason for complete lack of faith is because when we have raised issues and continue to raise issues, we're not seeing any protection of us from the responsible, dubiously, very, very dubious title for those groups, given that they don't appear to be demonstrating responsibility. But that's where we come from. So, and for me, it's the fact that this reverberation that will carry on and spread out, these hours go on too late to be related to families who are, what's the definition of family as well? I mean, if you're talking about 7-year-olds, 8-year-olds, 13-year-olds, whatever, just how late does one have to go into the night to do that? And this is a far more heavily residentially occupied environment than their previous installation. And that's really the concern.
Thank you very much for speaking so clearly there. Would you like to speak as well?
Yes. Yeah, so my comments, basically, I reiterate as well what Brian and Barbara have just said. So same concerns, but I just want to add a few additional points. So my property, my bedroom's back onto Brightwells Alley. So that will be one of the main thoroughfares where patrons will come and go from the venue. And as Barbara said, it does echo terribly. So concerns are, with deliveries. We have had a lot of problems with the bin men coming at ridiculous hours of the morning, which has been reported and complained about, yet they still do it. They did it last week. They came at 4:30. And that was for a glass collection. So that was very loud. And we have a lot of people coming and going because you've also got an entrance and exit to the car park. So already we have lots of people coming through. Because it's a bit more of a secluded area, it's also an area where it attracts groups of youths, and just generally people congregate there. I don't think they realise, they don't look up to see that there's residential properties and windows. We can actually hear everything. Unfortunately, we've had incidences like at the start of the year, there were young men fighting down the alleyway. There is no CCTV down there. So I think also it attracts crime for that reason, because they think it's a safe spot where they're not going to be seen. That was reported to the police. We've had groups of youths coming there as well. And I mean big groups. We're talking 12, 15, say 13, 14-year-olds, which is intimidating. And it's intimidating because it is, you know, a family area. We've got the cinema, we've got Pirates Landing children's play area. And we've also, Den 97 wants to attract families too. So of course, that just needs to be taken into consideration, how that comes across to people parking and walking into the square. Yeah, it's just we've had lots of issues. I did put the crime reference numbers on my objection letter, so you have got those. And I noticed on the plans submitted that whilst there was CCTV inside the venue, I can't remember if there was any at the front, but I noticed there wasn't any down the side where the alley is. Yeah, so that's as that's already attracting crime and criminal damage. I forgot to mention the teenagers like to throw things around, pull up plants from our flower beds. Yeah, that's a main concern, because obviously that's a spot where people might go and smoke. We've obviously got our windows, as mentioned, that's bedroom windows. You don't want smoke coming in when you're in bed or trying to sleep. You know, if there's children living in the apartments, then that's really inappropriate. If people are being loud, you know, if there's foul language, there could also be criminal behaviour, not just fighting, drug use, all sorts of things that we don't know what could happen. But based on what's happened so far, it's not been a very good indication of what could come next. I also just wanted to point out that I appreciate during the week the hours are reduced, but I just wanted to flag that why Thursday being open until midnight? Because, you know, Friday is a work day for most people, so that could be very disruptive for us trying to get a good night's sleep. And yeah, and also all of the points we've made really relate to all of the different licensing objectives. So yeah, it's not, you know, crime, but also making it appropriate as a family area. I appreciate we all want Brightwell's Yard to succeed. We want the businesses to do well. We want it to be full, but it was always created as mixed use. So we were always going to be there, the residents. So, you know, we've just got to get the right balance so that we're all happy and it works for everyone. I think, I can't remember now if there was reference to people being on the door. I imagine there would be based on other venues, but I think it just needs to be a bit clearer exactly what their remit will be, when they will be there, just so then we know that there is some backup there if it's needed. And also, I just wanted to flag one correction with regards to where the residents' properties are located. So there's actually residents on the ground floor as well, directly behind the venue. So they will be greatly affected by the comings and goings of people who also like to throw rubbish, I note, onto some of the private terraces. And not just of Watson House, we've also got Mitford Court right next door, and there's loads of residences all on the ground floor there. So yeah, it's you know, it is a family area, so that just needs to be really taken into consideration, and it would just be great to hear how the council will support that, how the venue will work with the council, the police, just based on the fact we've had so many problems already.
Thank you very much. I'd like to now invite the subcommittee to ask any questions.
Chair, I just wondered if I might take the opportunity to respond to the comments made, because it might help assist the councillors in their decision making before we lose the essence of what they've said. Would that be appropriate?
Yeah, that's absolutely fine.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
Please go ahead.
Well, thank you for that. I think you've raised some significant issues. I'm quite shocked to hear that the local council are collecting bins at 4 o'clock in the morning. Right. So, I mean, the general. Yes. Well, well, sorry, if I may just address that then, whoever is responsible for collecting the waste, it is pretty standard in applications of this nature, where they're in the middle of a residential area, that it is in fact conditioned on the licence that trade refuse can't be collected, say before 8 a.m. or after 9 p.m. at night. And my client would be more than happy to accept that. I don't think that the management companies can dictate which supplier you use. Yes. Well, if it's the management company, then we can put it as we're happy to accept a condition on your license, and then they will have to comply, because ultimately, as a business, we will pay for that service per bin.
Thank you, Mr. Don. If I could bring in Mr. Hughes, because my understanding was that commercial would be employing independent sort of waste management companies. Is that correct?
Domestic waste, Waverley is responsible for, and we have a contract with a company that deals with that. But commercial waste, it's down to the businesses to get their own contract with different waste suppliers. It's not Waverley collecting.
Thank you for that clarification. Mr. Don, you've obviously, your clients accepted that they would accept a condition around collections, but I believe there's mention of disposal of bottles. This is something that often comes up in front of committees.
Yes, indeed. So there's generally two conditions relating to trade refuse. The first one would be a condition that trade refuse cannot be picked up, say, before 8 a.m. in the morning, which seems reasonable, and neither can it be collected after, say, 9 p.m. in the evening, because there's no doubt bottle waste makes a hell of a noise, and I'm not surprised it's caused you some problems. The second one is in relation to the venue and where they put their waste after a certain time. And it's not uncommon for a condition to be imposed that no waste will be placed in outside receptacles after, say, 10 o'clock or 9 p.m, whichever is deemed appropriate. So the waste is stored inside the venue, but only put into the trade refuse, the big 1,300 bins, after, say, 8 o'clock at night, 8 a.m. in the morning. So there'd be no refuse, including bottles, placed in any external bins. So most businesses will have a bin on the inside where the waste is kept in overnight and then only put into the external bins ready for collection at an appropriate time. Now, in the old days, there was a reason why bottles and rubbish had to go outside, and that was mainly because of the smoking regs, or before the smoking regs, where you might have cigarette butts and so on that could be inflammable. Now, of course, because of the no smoking, one of the benefits is that you can safely store rubbish within the building overnight and simply put it in next door. So that, I hope, if you were to condition the licence, would alleviate that problem. And then it's a matter for my client operating the business to speak to the management company. Now, it is correct. It is the management company of the whole area that determines the contract with the refuse bins. But equally, my client can put a lot of pressure on and say, look, this can't be right. And it's not. And it doesn't happen elsewhere. So why should it happen in your particular properties? I then want to move, if I may, on to antisocial behaviour in the area. It's been identified that the ewes are probably 12 to 14 years old. They're hanging around, and that's probably because the area is only half let. And by bringing in new businesses into the area, actually, there's an opportunity to provide better supervision. Now, on the plans, we have included CCTV, a comprehensive CCTV system, as agreed with the police, not only in the inside of the building, but the front elevations overlooking the patio. Now, that said, If there is an issue down the side alley, there's nothing to prevent us putting additional cameras outside of, down the side of the building in the alley, and my client's more than happy to do that. It will be a simple amendment of the plans.
That's helpful.
So I have more to say, but I'll just come back.
Yeah, if you remind Mr. Hughes.
Chair, I just wanted to mention when we talk about CCTV down the alley, is that your premises, the alley?
Yeah.
Yes. The site
As long-
elevation. Yes.
As long as it's your property.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's a concern about conditions, is how much control you have in terms of actually enforcing that. And can I just get a bit more clarification about how the waste is disposed of? You said, is it the management?
Well, there is the management company that runs the whole. Was it Crestful?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. So they manage the system, but of course, our client pays, all the businesses pay into the management company under the service charge. Within that service charge is an element for trade refuse collection. But of course, if it's a condition of our licence, they can only pick up the trade refuse at a certain time. And I really can't foresee a problem with that. If all the businesses recognise that they're causing a problem to local residents, why should they be allowed to pick up at 4 o'clock in the morning? Now, I don't know which particular external contractor they use, but generally, sorry? Oh, well, I have no comment on that particular company, but there are companies out there that would adhere to different time slots.
I understand you've got a few other points to raise.
Yes, if I may. Then we talk about antisocial behaviour. I think that can't be attributed to a venue that's not there, but actually if there's a vibrancy in the area, an extra CCTV, it helps. I recently did an application for the hut in the middle of a road, and the police were concerned. Good job it was there. State-of-the-art cameras, state-of-the-art CCTV. And if there is an incident that's not related to the premises, then it's not unusual for the police to visit a licensed premises for their CCTV. That is certainly within Thames Valley Police, and I'm sure Surrey Police would follow the same policy. So most venues provide additional CCTV for incidents that occurred that have got nothing to do with the venue, but it supports the police in instantly identifying either criminals or people engaging in antisocial behaviour. So it's a good thing to have that extra supervision. And indeed, where there is nothing going on, kids tend to congregate. Where there's a flourishing business, actually the toing and froing dissuades them from hanging around because it's a buzzy environment. Then in relation, if I may, to the outside patio, will be no music, no speakers on the outside patio at all. It's only contained within the business. We really have thought through the design of the business in the direction of the speakers and so on, so it won't cause music won't flow outside. And we're certainly not installing any speakers outside. In respect of the tables and chairs, the chairs will be movable, and ultimately so could the tables, but the tables will be of sufficient weight that they won't be easily moved around. It's very frustrating for a restaurant operator where clients choose to move tables around. We have a set pattern, that's what it sticks to it, and the furniture will be heavy enough and robust enough to stay in place. For the chairs that do have to move out, then each of the chair legs will have rubber grommets on the base of the legs. In respect of smoke pollution, well, it is an outside area, but the smoke should have dissipated by the time it reaches to the first floor. You would have seen from the photographs, they are very high ceilings within the premises. So on the outside, the smoke should have dissipated there. Chair, I think I've managed to address most of the points that the objectors have raised, hopefully to their satisfaction.
Councillor Hess, would you like to ask some questions?
There's a whole barrel load of issues here. I actually live in the town, in West Street. I live opposite a pub and I live opposite a restaurant. I do not hear any glass being tipped out at antisocial times from either premises because presumably this council have put in conditions to make sure that they do it at the sort of hours that you've mentioned, example, not before 8 a.m. and not after 9 p.m. Now, those sort of conditions can be put in, correct? I have huge amounts of sympathy for residents that live adjacent to or above hospitality premises. I've had dealings, as Paul Hughes knows, over the last couple of years on a constant basis because my ward is the town. Everything goes on in that town and a lot of it lands up in my inbox. The thing is, you can predict things happening from antisocial behaviour, rocks being thrown. And I've indeed had, because I've had a retail premises on West Street, I've had terracotta tubs turned over and smashed, 150 quid a piece. We've had a rampage. We've had a rampage through Farnham, which started at the maltings, where they smashed hundreds of pounds worth of plate glass, came all the way through the town, turning over tubs, smashing people's windows and disappearing. I'm afraid to say this is town life. We have to get a reality check. This, I suffer it. I live in it. I hear all the loud exhausts on bikes and cars. Drives me demented. Sundays, Wednesdays. But this is town life. We also suffer from a lack of, I'm tempted to say, no policing. The Farnham bid has had to put in 2 wardens, which is basically paid for by an additional tax on retailers to help visitors to the town, to assist, and to dissuade people from antisocial behaviour and shoplifting. You know, we are living in difficult times. But going back to the fundamentals of this, when Brightwells was on the drawing board, when it was coming forward some years ago as a planning application, it had the commercial element and the residential element in it. And within the commercial element, there were hospitality units. Now, can you tell me whether number 5 was a designated hospitality unit? Are you Bill, by the way?
Yes, I am.
Bill, are you able to tell me whether number 5 was originally designated as a hospitality outlet?
Yes, it was.
Right. So anybody buying into Brightwells residentially, hopefully will have had a solicitor doing due diligence on what they're buying, where they're buying, and what is likely to come in to the commercial units. Okay, it's kind of buying or renting with your eyes wide open. Now, I know Brightwells quite well. And so what you're looking at, residents, is basically a hospitality company wanting to operate in a designated hospitality unit. I would have hoped that you would have known that you were buying into or renting a unit, or sorry, a flat or apartment close to what will become a hospitality outlet. Now, the question is then, given that it will become a hospitality unit, is what occurs there and how it's managed. Yes, you're quite right. I didn't catch your name, but the policing in Farnham is abysmal. And I hope that goes on record. Send the message out to the Waverley commander, because I have had conversations time and time again with him about policing, speed limits, and basically patrolling our town. Nothing. I hope that'll change in the future. I've even brought this to the attention of the police commissioner. Hopeless, utterly. Anyway, coming back to this, I've got a number of questions. What type of soundproofing exactly? Because I've been there and I've had a look. I've seen all of the glass fibre going into the joists. Whether you would consider adding to the flooring, walls and ceiling soundproofing some kind of double door system, because an awful lot of noise pollution comes out when people come and go. It's like an airlock, so that if music is playing, I note that you said it's background music, which is helpful, because I can tell you, as Mr. Hughes knows, I've attended 10 o'clock at night on a Saturday, a nightclub in the town, which was never intended to be a nightclub. It was intended to be a shop, and it's got no soundproofing at all. So with this unit, it is able to be customized to provide the soundproofing. Do you want me to stop?
Yeah, just for fairness on both sides, they haven't applied for live or recorded music. But once a licence is granted, any alcohol premises for on sales, when they're open for on sales, between the hours of 8 AM and 11 PM, they are allowed music. So they could, although they're saying they're not, they could in 6 months' time decide to play music, and they're covered for it under the Live Music Act, where it's changed, the Licensing Act.
But for everybody's information, if later on, supposing this application is granted, if the music that is being played in that premises is obtrusive, you know what will happen, Paul, because we've been there. There'll be complaints from neighbours. We'll attend with the environmental health officer. We'll note what's going on, and they'll be put on notice. And then it will be put on an observation to be observed, and any alcohol or other license can be revoked. So there are controls. And what is worrying me here is that we're kind of prejudging a hospitality outlet before it's opened its doors and any problems have occurred. I grant you there have been problems in the town. I've had to attend late at night. There have been other ones which are in retail premises, never designed for hospitality with music. So they haven't got soundproofing. So those issues have had to all be dealt with by Waverley's environmental officers, and they've worked really hard on it, I can tell you. They have engaged with residents, they've visited, they've brought in conditions to deal with it. Unfortunately, that has to be retrospective after you've suffered a problem. Now, in this case, if the soundproofing is good, and I'm going to ask for details of what that soundproofing is, in my premises, when I converted it to residential, I had to put in soundproofing and suspended acoustic tiles. So we'll be very interested to hear what you're doing. Whether you'd be willing to put in an airlock entrance door. I am concerned about smoking, because despite what you said, smoke does rise, and during the summer, when residents have got their windows open, they will smell that smoke, and that's not nice. So that is an issue. Let me just see what else I've got here. I note about the patio, no music, chairs with rubber feet. That's all good. You've clearly thought it through. And the CCTV, I look upon that as being a very good initiative. You know, if Brightwells starts to get blighted by antisocial behaviour, youth running around, making a noise, fighting, then we have to demand that Surrey Police deal with it. You know, we cannot be in a free-fall situation where things are occurring in the town and there's no policing. But that's not your problem. That is not the applicant's problem. That's a different problem. And I think we all feel this. I live in the town, you know, I want better policing. And if it occurs that this hospitality company operate in an unreasonable fashion down the road, you'll call on me and I'll come out. I'll do a 10 o'clock at night visit, whatever.
I think if we let Mr. Don answer,
Anyway,
there's a few questions.
I'd be very interested to hear
Chair,
from you.
happy to respond to some of those queries. The soundproofing for the ceiling is there's some soundproofing going in above what is effectively a suspended ceiling. So you've got 2 layers there, so that should suffice with that. All speakers, which is only background music, are going to be on rubber grommets, and again to prevent vibration. In respect of the double doors, we don't think there is a necessary need for that because we've not asked for recorded music. Background music in itself is not licensable. We don't think there will be a breakout coming in and out. But I do understand the concept. If we were a nightclub, that's different, but we're not. We're a restaurant and bar. The other venues in town don't have double doors, and we don't see that there's going to be any difference from that. And then just to comment on the police, we have already approached the local pub watch. We've not had a response yet, but in other areas, we've used the pub watch network where we've been active members. In fact, we tend to generally run them. We have, through that network, we've been able to put pressure on the police to respond and have a much better police presence because it's a trade's voice. It's the licensed premises as a collective saying, actually, we need support. And of course, if you've got a more vibrant economy, then it's more likely you will have much more improved policing in the area, because then they know that they've got to respond. Of course, manpower is short. I mean, it's a matter of priorities, but generally where you have a robust evening trade, which we expect, then it follows that there's more likely to be police, not only for a particular venue, they wouldn't want to call out on a particular venue, but they would police the town centre with an appropriate level of police officers deployed. And again, of course, here we are today making an application, and should you be minded to grant it, if things, if the wheels do fall off and we become, create public nuisance and so on, as you rightly said, the approach from the environmental health officer responding from residents' complaints can either go through with his own powers in terms of noise enforcement abatement notices, or indeed the licence could be taken to review. But I'm delighted to say that my client is a very experienced operator. He's got a good team around him. He's got the policies, the procedures, the training in place to ensure that he manages the operation effectively.
Thank you. And Councillor Hess, you'd like to ask a further question?
I think you answered very well, Bill, but this particular restaurant is slightly different with the modern I don't know how to pronounce it, experiential entertainment,
Yes.
which could generate quite a lot of excitement and noise from people having a good time, and nobody would begrudge anybody from having a good time. So it's not quite a conventional restaurant as most of us know it. And I just wonder whether the company operate any security, because a lot of pubs operate security, for example. Also, I'd just like to put one little comment in which may help you guys. We had a problem with noise in a pub, I'm not going to mention the name, in Castle Street. And in conjunction with the landlord, we put notices on all the tables by the front door, the entrance to the pub, to encourage patrons to leave quietly and to stop drinking after a certain time outside. And it has actually worked. I've had no more complaints. It's settled down. So there are measures that can be taken, either just directly by the operator or by environmental health. So if this is granted, I think you should have a little bit of reassurance that there are certain controls that can be taken.
Councillor, could I just come back on you for that? Yes, we do hope that our patrons have a good time, have fun operating the equipment. But I have to say, shuffleboard is a bit of a quieter operation, as indeed playing darts. People don't go running around the room saying, yes, I've scored a bullseye. It's quite a timid affair. It's interesting. It's competitive socialising. It's where the hospitality market is moving. The golf machine is a platform that you stand on. You swing the golf ball against a screen and computer generates where the ball's gone. It's all exciting stuff, but it's not a football match. Is not hockey. It's something. It's more refined.
We'll just ask a couple more questions, but we will be coming back with closing statements, and I'll be grateful if one of you could be appointed a spokesperson and just raise any issues. You've obviously got a question yourself, have you, at the moment? But I'll bring in Councillor Reid and then I'll come back to you. Is that okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Quite a few questions, actually. Going through the report, very kindly done by Paul Hughes, our licensing manager. There are certain statements that are rather nebulous in the report, which has probably come from both sides, but the entire licensable area shall be covered by the CCTV. Now, are you representing not only your client, but you're representing Surrey County Council? Is that correct?
Sorry, Ma'am. No. It's a pretty standard condition on licenses. In fact, it goes on all my licenses now, because whilst each application is based on its own merits, in reality, we draw from a pool of standard conditions. I think, and that is a relatively standard condition that all of the internal area, or the licensable area, which in this case includes the outside smoking, will be covered by CCTV in order to prevent any dark areas. It's all covered.
And you had another statement and the use of the word we. Can you clarify we being who you represent, not only your client, but who else are you representing?
When I say we, I mean Brightwell Limited, the applicant. That is who I represent.
I just wanted to get that cleared up. Thank you very much for that. At the bottom of our page 22, we have the premises licensed holder or duly nominated representative. Is there a person?
Yes. Sorry, could you just refer which page it's for me?
Well, this is in our notes. I don't know if you've got them. Page 22.
Page 22.
Number 5.
Number 5. Oh, yes. So,
and in order to talk about local pub watch,
yes,
because you referred to we again in there, and
well,
who was that we? Because I thought they were independent.
Yes, let me clarify the fact. I've been representing Mr. Murat for Mr. Summit for 23 years plus. and we obviously do quite a lot of bits and pieces together, including I run the Reading Pub Watch, I run the Wokingham Pub Watch. Murat was the secretary to Wokingham Pub Watch as well.
So you're a
we're-
man of many hats, with many hats.
Well, it is and it isn't, because
yes.
it's all within the industry. So we.
My next question,
yes.
thank you for that. Number 9, top of the page, premises holder, licence holder shall risk assess the requirement for the need to deploy SIA approved door supervisors. Now, have you done that? Will you do it, or is it being done?
It's being done at the moment based on, it's very hard to know what the requirement is before you open. Now, there is, for the first few weeks, there will be door supervisors deployed on a Friday and Saturday, because we're verging into the unknown. Once we've got a trading pattern up and running, and this is very similar to the venue that we operate, that my client operates in Wokingham, actually by default, they don't need door supervisors for most days of the week.
Thank you very much. That's enough of that. But I will come back to the Wokingham issue, because that is not below residential premises. I understand that is above or below a car park, is it not? So there are no residents actually living within the confines of that building.
Mum, you are correct in itself to say that there's no residential property immediately above, but within 20 metres there's tower blocks, not tower blocks, but at least it's 3 floors, three stories high.
When are the risk assessments going to be made? After you've tested it all, or what?
No, the risk assessments as a standard policy are there. We just need to go through you'll see from the application that not only will we risk assess each day the need, and we're already committed to having door supervisors for the first couple of weeks on the Friday and Saturday, because we think that's appropriate, and on the opening night as well. And then we need to see how the trade patterns go. But in addition to that, we do recognise that there are calendar events that occur throughout the year, determined by the calendar, which will include New Year's Eve, Christmas Eve, Sundays immediately preceding bank holidays. Depending on the customer profile, it may include A-level results and so on. So a lot of thought goes into it to make sure.
Thank you. That's all I need on that. I'm sorry to rush through, but I've got quite a lot more to ask. On the same page 24 at the top of the page, this is a bit concerning, and maybe concerning for residents. All events using promoters not associated with the premises. Would you please tell me who these people might be and what sort of activity will be going on? And then the follow-on question is the concern about getting illegal weapons off people, and where will they be stored? I spend a lot of time in America, and my son is a licensed gun holder, but I know all the rules and regulations with that. What regulations have you got? That's the second question, about safely storing anything that gets confiscated by you representing people and people on the premises. That is a bit concerning. And then the promoters not associated with the premises, please.
Chair, in essence, this condition is in so that if they should have a guest appearance of a golfer, a darts player, an international darts player, and so on, because of the gaming aspect, and when I say gaming, I mean the shuffleboards and the like, should there be an event that they have a international star come down, and I'm trying to think of jockey, an international star or a national star, then if that should be the case, then we would notify the police and say, look, something out of the ordinary is going on here. But we're certainly not looking for music sponsors to come down and do DJ guest appointments, because we're not licensed for that, and neither is that style of their business. Now,
I think here I'm talking about when you're frisking people.
Yes, yes, I'm just
And
going to.
that normally, I think, happens when you're entering a nightclub, does it not?
Yes, Chair, but sorry, Ma'am. It is pretty standard protocol that if you are opening on a Friday and Saturday within a town centre, then should door supervisors be deployed and you choose to do a search, now that might be random searches, 1 in 10, 1 in 5, or everyone, then there should be a protocol, and that's normally agreed by the police. This is pretty standard, that if a confiscation is made, and let's look at weapons, for example, which is probably very rare, you might get 1 in 3 years, but anything over than 3.5 inches can be confiscated, and it would be put into a police evidence bag and bagged and tagged, reported in the management incident logs, and then the police officer, the local police, would be emailed and say, look, this is what's happened. If it is an offensive weapon, then of course the police will be called, because there's somebody carrying an offensive weapon. And indeed, it is the best practice that even if somebody brings in a penknife that's legitimate, that it is seized for the evening and given back the next day. So it's much better to have policies and procedures in place, even if you don't, even if they are not required. And indeed, I think because the conditions are so comprehensive, that's one of the reasons where the police are satisfied that in all eventualities, my client has anticipated that you need a policy and procedures in place. Much better to do it up front, and we will simply lift the policies that we already have in place for the other company site.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Don. Mr. Hughes, would you like to come back on that?
Just a couple of points for these conditions that were put forward by the applicant. You can add more that you want, or you can tighten these ones up. Some of them you might want to review anyway, because they've got to be enforceable. And things like on that one particularly, I'll just use that last one, notification given to the police. Well, that can be an email. I sent an email to the local police station. It has to be to the licensing officer of the area. So to tighten these things up, because otherwise, if they breach them and we go there because we've had a complaint that they weren't notified, we can't take any enforcement. So any conditions on a licence should be enforceable.
Chair, if I just come back, it does rather depend on the local police. In some areas, it's the PCSO that is required. Sometimes it's a licensing officer who then resends it out to the operational police. It just really depends on what the protocols are agreed with the local police. And of course, if certain personnel change, then that may change again. But certainly there should be a policy and procedures in place for all eventualities.
Thank you. I have two more, several questions more, but will you be having air conditioning? And that's very important because of the noises Councillor Hess has mentioned. That cuts down a lot of the door and window opening for residents. And especially with the smoking.
That's the affirmative. We do have air conditioning.
Thank you for that. There was one more thing I haven't quite found. I'll carry on looking. You carry on with whatever you want to do. Oh.
Thank you for your patience. Do you want to ask your questions of the applicant now?
You referred,
If you could just put your microphone on, thank you.
you referred to the outside smoking space, which means not only is it likely that it means that the space will be concentrated cigarette smoke. So I want to come back to that point about the dispersal of cigarette smoke for the residents that are immediately above. And I also want to draw your attention to the fact that whilst certain other establishments are also near restaurants and pubs and so forth, your premises in Wokingham and in that example are on thoroughfares. They're on main roads. this is not an installation on a main road. It's not there are no vehicles. It's not.
Actually, that's not true. It is a pedestrian highway walking through.
Yours in Wokingham.
Yes.
My apologies. I didn't realise that.
Yes, I mean, one of the things I need to highlight is the capacity is 140. We anticipate, as usual, a 50-50 split, but there will be younger people in there as well. It's very much a family-orientated type place, a fun night out. So that 140 includes the outside seating area. Generally, with hospitality businesses, it's very rare a four-top table is actually taken up by four. Normally there's two people out there. So we're not anticipating that the external areas where people will be eating as well will be overwhelmed.
Please go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to check. So, sorry, you say it's a family bar, but I just wanted to clarify as well, because when I went on your website, I want to check it's going to be the same in Farnham. It says that children will have to leave, or children, I think under 16, maybe it was 18, have to leave the premises by 9 p.m.
Well, that is an archaic condition relating to that specific site. And that's because originally back in the day, it was a Lloyd's nightclub.
Oh, so that's specific to the Wokingham branch, so it
Yes,
won't apply
because,
to Farnham?
yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things that's on the licence that we can't remove, not without a great deal of expense. So that's why that's conditioned, but we haven't put such a condition. It's a bit of a hangover from the old grandfather rights.
Okay, so
going
it's
back,
different from how it will be at
yes,
Farnham.
because the
Okay.
licenses were transferred over time, and even if you change the concept and ownership, actually the premises license stay in place unless either you apply for the grant of new license or vary it. And it didn't seem in this particular case a big issue. We've not put that on the application today.
Okay. I also wanted to just flag with the smoking issue that, yeah, it will definitely rise up. If my neighbour smokes on their terrace directly below my window, come straight in. I have to close the door. So yeah, I don't know how you'll get around that one. That's going to be tricky. I also just wanted to flag again the point about Thursdays, because obviously that does affect the licensing. And if consideration has been taken into account there, that, you know, that's a work day the next day, I'm just concerned that if closing time isn't until midnight, then by the time people trickle out, say, do their goodbyes and whatnot, you know, it could start getting quite late before, you know, peace is resumed and we're trying to sleep.
Chair, may I respond to that? We have included within the licensable hours that we've applied for, both for the sale of alcohol and for the late night refreshment, which is only applies 3 nights a week. We have allowed 30 minutes drinking up time. And that's quite key because the sale of alcohol will finish at a certain time and then customers have up to 30 minutes to drink and disperse. And actually, the longer drinking up time that you have, the quieter people are to leave. So it's not like the old days where you've got 10 or 15 or 20 minutes to drink up and out. People, as soon as they can't buy a drink, generally, or they've finished eating, generally they drift away. So the longer the period, and in this case, we've determined it to be 30 minutes, is about right. It's the right balance. In that case, the premises will be clear. Generally, once the bar is closed, actually, most people go home. But we want that 30 minutes in to allow the consumption of alcohol, albeit not a licensable activity in itself, but it's the best way to manage the dispersal of guests.
Okay, I mean, it's still a Thursday night though, work the next day is still going to be a problem. I'm just, you know, thinking ahead, otherwise you're going to get complaints. I just wondered if you'd really factored that into your planning. I understand a Friday and Saturday, but a Thursday seems a little bit excessive.
Well, if I may respond to that, of course, that might be a work night for you, but for many people, actually, it's not. The Friday isn't a work day.
I think the
the following
majority
day.
it is, yeah.
Well, people work shifts, they work late. Odd times. My wife works for the 999 services and she works really weird shifts. So it does depend on whether you're a traditional Monday to Friday 9 to 5. So there's an argument both ways.
Sorry, statistically, I think it would be hard to imagine that the people working that don't work Friday greatly outnumber the people that do.
Thank you. I think we'll probably leave that to the closing statements, if that's okay. I mean, Mr. Don has one view, you have another, but I think Councillor Reid just wants to come in with the last question.
I did ask about air conditioning, and you did say that it is going to be, or it has been installed. My other question is about extracting the air. Extractor fans, are they operating all the time?
Yes, no, obviously, in the close of business, they'll be turned off. The design of the building, right from the outset, was designed for hospitality. So it's actually the building developers who installed the main extract canopies. Yes, my client has had to fix up the various extract bits, but it all goes through a central funnel that's been built by the property developers on instructions of the landlord.
Thank you.
One final question, if that's okay.
Going back to the about you don't see the need for double doors, you know, on the entrance and exits. And he said that there was no businesses do that. Well, there's been 2 new businesses in town, and both have that.
Well, we've looked at in response to that, we've looked at the design. We don't think that's necessary. If it does, then if it proves to the point that we do have to, then we'll come back and do a minor variation for the change of layout. But at the moment, we feel that there's not going to be an issue with all the other bits and pieces we've submitted.
Thank you, Mr. Don. I think you've obviously been asked a lot of questions, and I'm grateful to your client for making concessions as we've gone along in terms of openness to conditions. I think what I'm struggling with is, you know, I'm satisfied up to a point, but the outside area is a big concern. I think you've demonstrated that you can control certain aspects, soundproofing, you've offered additional CCTV, waste collection. The outdoor area, as you've heard, there's concerns there will be loud noise from patrons, that they're going to be basically having a good time outside. Again, that's where I'm struggling. How can you control that? What can you do to assure residents that that's not going to be a problem?
It may be possible that we close the area outside for or last service of meals half an hour before the bar closes. So that will then means that the area, no further drinks or food will be served on the outside. Of course, if people want to smoke, if we don't have them on the patio, they're still going to walk in further into the park and have a cigarette and return. Now, we have, as a condition within the licence that we proposed in the application, no open bottles, so they certainly can't take their drinks out. But I feel, I just don't think it's going to, maybe my opinion, but I don't think it's going to be a particular issue based on the evidence that we've got from the existing venue. But it's not only that, we've looked at other experiential businesses as well, and it doesn't seem to be a concern. If it does become a concern, then we've offered a hotline where that complaint can come through, and we'll deal with it. We want to work with the residents. It's important that we do.
Thank you, Mr. Don. Mr. Hughes, the applicant mentioned that there are premises, commercial premises in the area, and it's contained within a statement, a number of names within there. Are you aware of any business?
I've got some here, Chair, that are in the area. Real Cinema, obviously, that's been mentioned. They've got provision of late night refreshment till 5 o'clock in the morning and alcohol till 1 o'clock in the morning. Monteforte at 6 Old Market Place, they have sale of alcohol till 10 o'clock at night. And Nando's 5 Old Marketplace, they have provision of late night refreshment till midnight and alcohol till midnight, and they close at midnight 30.
I'm grateful for that. Thank you. We'll come to closing statements now. We start with the residents. Absolutely, yeah.
If that's the case, can we take a natural break for a couple of minutes?
Of course, we're adjourned for 5 minutes.
I'm more than grateful.
We'll come back at 10 to. Thank you, everyone. If we begin with closing statements, we'll start with the residents first and then finish with the applicant.
Okay, firstly, thank you for the hearing, and thank you for explaining how you'll run it. We appreciate, you're showing us how you do care about the area and the residents, and, we want this to work out for everybody in Brightwells Yard. We want it to be a success. We appreciate that you have taken our considerations on board with the offer to extend the CCTV. We think that will really help a lot in deterring, potential antisocial behaviour with the alleyway and any criminal activity. We also appreciate that hopefully it will put off the pesky youths from hanging around, if there's more people around. But just to be aware, it's not only youths. We have had older adults too, like young adults, also causing problems. So that's something to be aware of. We also appreciate the hotline that you're putting in place so that if there is an immediate problem or concern, we can use that. And you've also taken on board our concerns about the refuse collection hours. So that's reassuring that, you can definitely see our perspective and point of view. Another premises having noisy refuse, is a major concern. So we appreciate that. We do have some concerns about the doorman. Whilst you'll be having them there when you first open, it's just how we're not sure at this stage how you'll assess whether you need them or not. I don't know how that works with the licensing and the council to determine what's necessary. I think at this stage as well, we still don't know the doorman's remit of what they will and won't be able to do. I mean, obviously you're going to be mainly concerned with your premises, but of course, as people come and go, that affects surrounding area and properties. We also do have some concerns still about the noise. Whilst we appreciate you're not planning on doing live music and music isn't the main entertainment in your business, it will be noisy when you've got people playing games. I've played shuffleboard myself and it does get quite loud, gets quite competitive. People also tend to play in groups. So I'm not entirely convinced that it won't be loud. So if you could have a look at that. I know one suggestion was the porch with a double door, which would definitely help to keep noise within the building. We're kind of assuming that because you've got air conditioning, therefore the doors to the patio won't be left open. But again, we're not entirely 100% on that. It would be good to kind of have clarification of how that will work, because obviously noise will really travel if the doors are open. We're also still concerned about the Thursdays. So I guess that's up to the licensing committee to determine whether they think that's fair on residents working a kind of usual 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. We also appreciate that you've said that you could potentially close the patio a bit earlier than the rest of the building, because that's going to be probably the most disruptive area for residents. Smoke, well, we're still very concerned about, just because it does travel very far. And even though you've said about the high ceilings, I am on the first floor myself. I am the other side of the building, but as I mentioned, if my neighbour smokes on their terrace below, it comes straight in. So I don't know what the solution is to that, but if consideration could be taken to that, we would very much appreciate it. We also just wanted to add that, we have had a number of, some of them teething problems with Brightwells Yard, which is not obviously your fault. But we just want to make sure that the council take our concerns seriously. Unfortunately, in the past, residents haven't felt like they've been taken that seriously. And I know that's not all down to the council. Like we've all said, a lot of it is to do with the policing, the lack of police. Because of that, it's become a bit of an unruly area. The teenagers know that they can pretty much do what they want. There's nobody to stop them. The wardens have helped that Farnham Bid brought in, but there's only 2 of them. They're also limited to what they can do. So we just want to, we just wanted to put that point across that, you know, we're really hoping that the council will support us with these concerns, because, you know, we're all entitled to a good quality of life. You know, there's been lots of issues that have just seemed to have got out of hand, and we feel like they shouldn't really have got that far. But yeah, I don't think I've missed anything. Is there anything else? No. Okay, that's it from us.
That's very good. Thank you very much. Mr. Dunn.
Thank you, Chair. This is a relatively straightforward application for the sale of alcohol and the provision of late night refreshment as per the application. We've heard from the objectors and they've got some genuine concerns. And I hope through the oral and written responses that we've given here today that will help to alleviate some of their concerns. But just to clarify one point, we didn't say we're going to close the area outside early. We just simply, we'd cease service early so that the service of meals and drinks outside would terminate 30 minutes before the bar shuts. Should you be minded to grant the licence, it will take an enlightened approach because it actually will have more activity in the area. There'll be more buzz going on and actually more supervision. And we know from our experience with other venues, not just Wokingham, but my client has had many venues across the south of England, that where you add in activity, supported by CCTV, it adds real value to the community and it assists the police in their investigations. We've looked at the elements of soundproofing, so we don't believe that we will cause a noise nuisance, but the fallback position is that the residents will indeed have a hotline to express their concerns. And my client is experienced enough. If there are complaints, then we'll hold a residents' meeting and listen to their concerns, and we're happy to do that. In respect of security, the condition we propose forward is risk assessment, and that's the appropriate step for this style of business. It's not particularly a late night bar, it's not a nightclub. So there may be a need for door security, there may not. As the committee members will be aware, that should we employ door supervisors, then they have to be registered with the Security Industry Authority. They've been fully trained, they're badged, they're licensed, and whilst they're contracted to a third party, vicarious responsibility falls with my client in the way that he managed. And given that Mr. Sept has been in the hospitality industry for 30 years plus, he's very experienced in managing those teams. Then I just draw your attention as final closing remarks. Your own council statement of licensing policy recognises that the entertainment and leisure industry and shopping contribute to Waverley's urban and rural economies. And of course, they are a major employer. And then I would just go down to the human rights. Of course, the residents have a right to enjoyment of the peace and quiet of their properties, but equally so, my client also has a right to operate his business. And indeed, it's competing priorities and a balance. And I would draw your attention to Daniel Thwaites PLC, and your licensing solicitor will advise you on that during the recess. It's got to be based on evidence rather than pure speculation. And because the business hasn't traded, it's hard to tell. Now, I'm sure there's other cases that one can take the presumptive approach, but we feel confident in the way that we put the conditions together that are proposed in the application that will satisfy the need for any concerns. Chair, that is my submission.
Thank you very much, and thank you, everyone. What will happen now is the committee will withdraw. We'll consider everything that's been said here now. Our committee secretary, Kimberly, will be with us taking notes, and we may take advice from our solicitor. We will then come back with a decision and explain our decision to you. So if you could be patient with us whilst we go and withdraw now to consider the decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you want to? Sorry, do you stay here?
thank you everyone for firstly being so patient and secondly for speaking so well on this application. I think it's been very measured, very considered. That's credit to all parties involved. Now, we've listened very carefully to both sides and have taken this very seriously. The committee have considered the report as well by Mr. Hughes, and we've debated the issue at length. We ultimately felt there was no reason to deviate from the policy and feel that the standard conditions are sufficient. Therefore, we'll approve the application, but with the following additional conditions. There will be no refuse that will be collected between the hours of 9 p.m. and 8 a.m. There will be no disposal of waste in the outside bins between 9 p.m. and 8 a.m. And the licensing condition to include CCTV coverage to the side of the premises along the alleyway. There will also be the additional condition that the last service of food and drinks on the outside area is to finish half an hour before the service of alcohol ends. That concludes our decision, and there will be the decision given to you in writing just to detail all of those. But again, once again, thank you everyone for that. And I'm sure the applicant would have heard everything today and will be mindful that there are concerns amongst residents and take that into consideration moving forward.
Thank you, Chair. We're most grateful. Thank you.